Anybody who's been watching my videos recently knows that I'm trying to learn as much as possible before starting Arknights, because I fell in love with Arknights Enfield, and I want to learn more about the universe, and everything I've seen so far is just making me more excited to just delve into the universe, because it's got some pretty cool lore. We've watched the first 2 videos from Terrastorian, and I must say, guys, if you haven't checked out this guy, check him out. He's only uploaded a couple of videos, and they are super high quality. But let's get into the next one then, shall we? This is Arknights timeline before Rhodes Island, and yeah, let's see what it's all about and get this show on the road. Let's go.
Welcome to Terrastorian, the channel where we explain Arknights lore. I am Akka, and
top tier quality as well.
We'll provide a
really
timeline-style summary of key events from the rise of Babel to its decline, which eventually led to the formation of Rhodes Island as we know it today. Most of the information we'll use comes from Babel, Walk on the...
Oh, is that why it's got the terror in its insignia then?
Dust, Dark Knight's memoir, and other relevant events occurring around this time of Babel's existence.
Okay.
There will also be some educated estimations of time for events where we don't have the exact dates, so without further ado...
A little bit of theory crafting, eh? Okay, I'm down.
It all began with a decisive war that took place...
Well, sure, there are a few errors I find in his videos. Okay, that's fair. See, I just get it from... I'm kind of taking it as gospel almost, because I'm ignorant to the facts, I guess. You know? As somebody who does theory crafting videos myself, I let it slide sometimes, because, you know, I don't do lore, I do more theory crafting stuff, really.
100 years ago.
Okay.
Between Khauset and her alliance and the Sarkaz of Khazdel. Khauset feared the constant wars waged by the Sarkaz, previously known as the T-Kaz, and grew weary of their defiance.
Is it T-Kaz or T-Zak? People said it was T-Zak, yeah.
Reclaimed the Black Crown. She forged an alliance with Victoria, Lefania, and Gaul, then declared war against Khazdel.
Right.
In 898, the war finally came to an end, but that's where the true story begins. Although Khazdel lay in ruins, and their Lord of Fiends, Elish, was killed.
Is Khazdel that's the one that's like got wars going on in between it, like civil wars, and they've been kind of at war for a long time, yeah? Is that the one that has some sort of like, if I remember rightly, because I'm hit with so much at the minute, I'm overwhelmed. Stuff that's kind of based on, like, I was getting some ideas of like Israel maybe. Or am I tripping now? Am I getting it mixed up? Because there's so many tidbits that I've got over the last few days. I'm kind of overwhelmed with all the names.
Khauset also fell in battle.
Okay.
And the alliance suffered devastating losses.
Dude, those steam knights.
Yet from this conflict,
cool.
6 legendary figures arose,
okay.
later celebrated as the 6 heroes of Khazdel. Okay. Among them were 2 siblings, the twins, Pyrrhus.
I love the character design in this game as well.
And
Teresa,
a tailor. Guided by the myriad of souls, they found the Black Crown, the power source of the Lord of Fiends. Pyrrhus crowned his sister, making Teresa the new Lord of Fiends. In the time between these events and where our story picks up, much has happened. Khauset was resurrected, and later became close friends with Teresa. Lacarameline, one of the 6 heroes of Khazdel, ascended to become the leader of the Banshees' court.
Some of these names are really cool as well.
In 1029, Gaul waged war against Lefania.
Okay, so is Gaul kind of based on, like, France, then? Is it?
Were later involved.
These are NPCs, are they? Jeez.
Nations of Victoria and Ursus, and later became known as the Battle of the 4 Emperors. A conflict that would shape the balance of power among many nations of Terra as we know it today.
France, yeah, okay.
In 1030, Teresa, now the Lord of Fiends,
okay, that looks badass.
Pyrrhus, the general of Khazdel, met with Scar-Eye, a Cyclops and leader of the Scar Market, to discuss the future of Khazdel and the Sarkaz. They also addressed the ongoing war between Gaul and Lefania, during which the Emperor of Gaul had secretly enlisted royal court casters from Khazdel as an advisor. The primary purpose of the twins' meeting was to discuss the establishment of the military commission of Khazdel. After the meeting,
so Teresa, are they like really like I'm guessing they're like you know, they have a lot of knowledge of warfare then, the Khazdel. Am I tripping in that, you know? I know their nation's kind of been destroyed multiple times, right? But I'm just thinking, because they've been at war, is that why they're trying to enlist those guys in a sense? Is it because they're you know, they're such, you know, storied warriors, if you will.
Shared with Pheresis her vision of creating
Am I just in headcanon right now?
The borders of race and nation. This idea will later serve as the foundation of the organization we now know as Babel.
Okay.
In 1031, the Battle of the
thousands and thousands of years of war.
Its climax, as the Empire of Gaul faced a formidable alliance of Lefania, Victoria, and Ursus. The Emperor of Gaul.
Okay, am I getting like, is this some sort of like reference to the Napoleonic Wars here? You know, like you know how there was like an alliance with what was it now? It was Prussia, Britain. I think who else was involved? The Portuguese, I think as well. Yeah, Spanish insurgents against Napoleonic France. Yeah.
Gaul fell on the battlefield, marking a turning point in the conflicts. The Alliance forces then laid siege onto Lingones, the Gaulish capital, reducing it to ruins. With its defeat, the once mighty Empire of Gaul was erased from the map of terror. In the autumn of 1031, the Kasdel Military Commission was formed and replaced the old War Council.
Except this time France literally gets wiped off the map. Hey, look, I'm British, you know, there's a lot of British people that might be like, ooh, I'm joking.
The remaining royal court members to attend. Present at the meeting,
we love our French brothers.
The Nahzira king, the vampires Sanguinarch, and the Damatzi cluster, who was in disguise outside the room. The Cyclopses did not respond to the call, and Fremont, the leader of the Liches, sent only his regards to the twins. While La Carameline did not object to the formation of the military commission, she did insist that the Banshees were still recovering from the wounds inflicted by the previous war. As such, they would not participate in the effort unless called upon to defend Kasdel. Nesalim, the king of the Nahzira, and mentor of Patriot and the twins, expressed no objections to the commission, so long as there will be a war to be fought. Ducario, initially indifferent, became interested after being persuaded by Pheresis. The Damatzi was present, but they did not say their piece and were merely outside in a disguise.
Okay.
Around the same time, Babel was formed, and volunteers were invited to help and trade around Kasdel.
Okay.
It is estimated that Hodera, Enos, Ascalon, and potentially Logos were all born approximately between 1060 and 1070.
Question. So where are we now in the world in terms of year? We're around like 1260, 1300 or something. He said it was like 200 years back, or was it 200 years back prior to something else? What's the sort of year in Terror at the moment?
W, also later known as
I know it's Kathy,
was likely born a few years later. In 1068, the Kasdelian-Lefanian War began, when a Lefanian elector
it's 1099 right now, thank you,
as compensation for the lack of spoils from the Battle of the Four Emperors. Scar-Eye demonstrated his opposition to the Lefanians by killing the envoy,
nice one. Cheers, chat,
and throwing him into the soul furnaces in front of Teresa and Pheresis.
Damn.
During this period, as Kasdel was escaping from the Lefanian fleet by charging directly into a catastrophe, miraculous path opened through the storm. Teresa and Pheresis led their armies of Sarkaz through this path. There, amid the storm, the twins encountered the young Ascalon. Remembering the ancient prophecy, they nevertheless chose to take her in and adopt her. Not too long after they welcomed Ascalon, tensions begin to arise between Babel and the Kasdel Military Commission, reigniting the Sarkaz's mistrust and resentment towards other races once again.
Right, okay.
Around
so the Sarkaz, yeah, did they like kind of have a bit of a superiority complex as well, if I remember correctly?
5. As tensions between Babel and the military commission continue.
No, I know there's like a lot of I guess interpersonal things with race in this game that people have been speaking about. You know, I think it leans into like, you know, the differences, shall we say, and tones of like racism between all the different cultures in the world.
To escalate in Kasdel,
not really, they're just outsiders because the outsiders hate them. Right, okay.
For a company in Colombia. Afterwards,
that's the ego, right, okay.
Sargon,
yeah, see, I'm getting hit with so many different names the last few days. I'm like, sometimes they're muddling in a little bit. I think you took me to Sieger. Right, okay. Okay, thank you.
Who we now know as Passenger. Together, they joined a group of mercenaries tasked with transporting an important prototype. However, the mission went awry. While they managed to escape, Passenger chose to remain in Sargon, where he was mentored by Isin, an elderly Savra soothsayer, while Kalsek continued on to Ursus. At some point, we can estimate that a young Caprine was thrown into the birch woods of Kasdo. This is where the young Enos and Hodera met for the first time.
Yeah, that's it. The Aegir, the sea people. Is that the one that's like Atlantis?
Kalsik worked in Chernobyl, Ursus, studying sarcophagus as a new energy source.
Okay, we saw a lot of references to Chernobyl yesterday.
The mother of Fornik, Sergei, the father of both Alex and Misha, and Ilya, the father of Crownslayer. All were scientists recruited by the Boris Group to study the sarcophagus. Despite their successes and breakthroughs of harnessing its power, the military intervened. This led to the total annihilation of the team, with Sergei turning against his colleagues after his family was kidnapped. The only survivors were Kalsit, Lilia, and Sergei, who later went missing and was later killed. Around 1080, Kalsit would meet Lilia again, who persuaded her to assassinate the Ursus Grand Duke Vanya.
Aegir calls Atlantis Sarkaz are the demon people. They face discrimination for how easily they get erypathy and the war relationship with other nations in the past. Right? Okay. I was gonna say because I know like infected by a lot of people are considered like less than, aren't they? Just really realize how many name drops this video has for an outsider. Yeah, dude. The last few videos have kind of been like that. I'm getting hit with like stuff left, right, and center, and I'm like, okay, all right, I'm getting an idea what's going on. It's like I'm getting a history lesson on a nation that I've just never knew about, like, you know?
And responsible for the attacks on their research team years earlier. The assassination attempt would be successful.
Once upon a time,
managed to get into the room where Vanya was already dying. They had a discussion, and Vanya
Sarkaz are born from the first Originium
by injecting him with a drug. Afterwards, Kalsit and Lilia fled Ursus. Between 1083 and 1084, Kalsit was in Victoria, assisting Count Vincent in treating his ailing wife.
Yo, this dude looks like he could be rocking with the Sith, you know? Dude could just be rolling up with like Darth Vader and his crew. Yeah, you know?
At the New Year's party, hosted by Vincent, she also met his niece, Heidi. However, things took a turn when Kalsit noticed the arrival of one of the Emperor's blades of Ursus outside the party. She instructed Heidi to keep everyone away from the garden, then went outside to confront the Emperor's blade. In classic Kalsit fashion, a lengthy dialogue exchange ensued between them, followed by a fight. Ultimately, the blade departed. Shortly
Hey, you gotta have a good long talk before you have a scrap, right? If anime's taught me anything over the years, you know, you gotta have a big exposition dump and then get into the scrap, right? You know, nice bit of filler before the fight.
Afterwards,
get your
Kalsit
pumps.
received a letter from Teresa, informing her that the excavation of the Rhodes Island landship has been completed. It's indicated around the time that the Rhodes Island landship was excavated in Rumbilliton.
Hey, thanks for the sub, man. Appreciate it.
A team of hunters during a sandstorm.
What gun is that?
In 1086, Kasdo entered a period of a cold civil war.
Okay,
with
we heard about
and
these.
the military commission opposing Babel and Teresa. Eventually, Teresa and the remaining Babel members were forced into exile, making the Rhodes Island landship their new base of operations and headquarters.
Oh, okay, so that kind of like, again, goes into this sort of stuff with, you know, if there is like, you know, references to Israel with that then, and with the Rhodes ship as well, like, you know, being exiled and that sort of stuff, a place to find home and such. Especially with like this stuff with the Babel as well. I think we're getting like, you know, these are biblical references, right? Not an expert on religion, but I feel like that's what we're getting here. Then while you're fighting, explain everything you're doing and be surprised when your attacks do no damage, right?
In the year 1090,
it became their arc.
When the Doctor is finally awakened in the landship by Teresa and Kalset. Upon awakening, the Doctor learns the current state of Terra,
hey,
the
Leo.
nature of Originium, and the plight of the Sarkaz. Curious to understand more of this world more deeply, the Doctor requests time to explore Terra firsthand. Later that year, travelling through Rumbilliton, Doctor rescues a young Amir from an accident. Soon after, they are joined by Savage, who accompanies them on their journey through the region. In 1091, the Doctor was called back to Babel. While Savage did not stay, she promised to visit from time to time. Upon returning, Calcit joined Doctor and Amia, informing them that Teresa wished to meet in person. When Doctor and Amia finally reached the landship, Amia was introduced to Teresa and Macalcit. In a private meeting with Doctor, Teresa asked their perspective on Originium. Doctor responded it wasn't meant to bring suffering, adding that Originium's impact on life has not gone as intended.
Interesting.
Teresa then led Doctor to a barren, Originium-infested wasteland to showcase her work. This marked a pivotal moment.
Because people have mentioned, people have had passing mentions of what humans parties. Like the humans, well, the Doctor, do they have a little bit more of an understanding of things then? So what is the deal with Originium then?
In the story of Arknights.
Doctor is the Originium creator. Okay.
Within this wasteland, Teresa
sounds about right, humans messing it up for everybody else. Okay, alright.
A small garden, untouched by Originium and unscathed by catastrophe. She explained that this garden symbolized Babel's research into Originium and her hopes to reverse its effects. Here, Teresa revealed to the Doctor that she had found a way to use the Originium's stored data to recreate life. Doctor was stunned by this discovery. Teresa remarked that no race understands Originium better than the Sarkaz, but clarified that this is only the beginning. Her vision was to extend this restoration from the garden to Kasdel and all of Terra, reversing Originium's destructive influence to create life and transform Kasdel into a true home for the Sarkaz. She dreamed of a world where Originium no longer inflicted suffering. However, as events would later show, these aspirations would clash with Doctor's own goals. Shortly after, disturbing news arrived, as the Duke of Cavendish had summoned Pheresis and the military commission to Londinium.
If you read Babel before going into Enfield, you'd be stuck at this flower field for a good 5 minutes. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I did a lot of glazing over stuff in Enfield because I really wanted to experience it properly when the game launched. That's one of my only issues when I play a beta. I try my best to just ignore pretty much everything related to story references. I just try to go through the gameplay as much as possible, and I use the stream to just kind of keep me occupied in that regard. So I can appreciate it when it launches.
Fearing that the Sarkaz would be drawn into another war, Teresa travelled to Kasdel to declare that she wouldn't allow them to participate.
I think the precursor Dr. Race will be revealing more detail in the future story.
Commission attacked Babel. To prevent losing control, Doctor took command for the first time, organising a defence and successfully...
Definitely cried in the Babel event.
Meanwhile, in the Scar market...
How closely linked do you think Enfield is going to be to Arknights then? Do you think it's more going to be a bit more of a spin-off? Or do you reckon it is going to act as the basis for potential... Because my thing is, if it is going to act as the potential for a sequel in regards to how they're doing stuff... how does that work as Arknights continues on, Could it act as a spoiler beforehand? I don't know. Well, depending on when it launches, of course, and where Arknights is at that point. Or will it act as like a... Yeah, like I say, it's more of a spin-off. It's set in the universe. There's a lot of references, but at the same time, it's... I don't know, he wants to appeal to new players. Yeah, it seems that. I just hope the world building's at that sort of level. That's my only, I don't want to say worry, because I look at this and I'm like, dude, the levels of world building here, if they bring this into Enfield, I'll be so freaking happy.
Scar-Eye. After a brief argument and scuffle, Scar-Eye admitted that he was the one that orchestrated the encounter with Teresa and Pheresis in 1068.
The gate that they used to travel to Enfield was in Arknights IS4.
From meeting her brother Pheresis by Kasdel's other leaders, who feared a direct confrontation. She saw, however, that the Sarkaz were still willing to fight for Pheresis' vision, burdened by the sense of duty towards their king.
Seems like they're always willing to fight.
A group of mercenaries and volunteers from Kasdel, loyal to her vision, followed her. According to historians, this war between the twins was formally declared in the winter of 1091, ending 2 centuries of peace within Kasdel. In the winter of 1092, the civil war between Babel and the Kasdel Military Commission intensified. During the civilian rescue operation, Doctor witnessed someone succumb to oropathy. This tragedy heightened Doctor's concern for those afflicted by the disease, and deepened their inner conflict over the use of originium. While the exact date is uncertain, around 1093, Hildra's team of mercenaries, including Ines and W, were contracted to assist Babel with their missions. This included the fateful mission to escort the landship, where misinformation led them to a dire situation.
Depending on how time works on Talos 2 compared to Terra, they could both be existing. Yeah, true, actually. Yeah, true. You know, leaning into the sci-fi elements, you've got a lot of room to play in those sort of things, haven't you? I think the Infiltrator kind of explained. See, that's what I need to do once I've had a little dive into the game and I've got a little bit more context. Once the game comes out, I'll probably be able to appreciate it a little bit more. Isn't Enfield a standalone thing not attached to the main game? I don't think so, because there's already been references in the game, hasn't there? So it's a bit odd that if it is going to be, I'm assuming it is going to be a standalone title in itself, but not entirely self-contained. It feels like there is definitely some connections, if you will. It just depends on how heavy they become, doesn't it?
Situation. It might have ended up disastrous if not for Teresa herself intervening on the battlefield.
That's a good point as well, DeGrove. You know.
Meanwhile, Doctor updated their log, reflecting on originium.
You got to, I suppose, ground it a little bit to a degree as well, haven't you? If you're going into a 3D environment, especially if you're going to show a lot and rather than telling.
That Nessalem and the Nazira Sarkaz were likely to get involved with the civil war. This development raised concerns about potentially the involvement of the vampires in the struggle. Near the end of their meeting, Ines and W entered the room, having just completed their latest mission.
Damn, I like her.
Winter, in Kasdel's
her.
The location where the statues of the twin heroes of Kasdel was erected, Doctor meets Pheresis. This is the first time they've ever made contact with each other. Doctor reveals they've long been in possession of crucial military plans, and have arranged for the secret meeting to offer Pheresis something valuable. Technology that can control originium, the Shard. Doctor proposes a deal. Pheresis would destroy Babel, scatter its forces and followers, and unify the Sarkaz under the military commission rule. The Doctor believed this method would unify the Sarkaz and ensure the expansion of originium. Pheresis challenges Doctor's sincerity, accusing them of speaking lightly of sacrifice. Doctor insists that their birth...
See, these little things here as well. I replied to somebody in the comment section. They mentioned a conflict that happened between... I forgot the names of the characters now. I'm overwhelmed with all the different characters' names. But they said that, like, I think the Doctor and, like, your squad kind of, like, were privy to a fight between these two characters that were just going at it blow for blow, and you guys just really couldn't, like, get involved because these two were so powerful or something like that, according to what they said. And I like that. Like, these here, like, we've got characters actually genuinely questioning our motives as well, which I like, because that's one of my problems a little bit with Wuthering Waves. I've said this multiple times. For me, I think worlds become a little bit more interesting when you're not really a Mary Sue character. You know, you're just perfect in every which way. You know, you trip, you fall over, and you fix everything kind of thing. I like it when it's not so much like that. I do. I like it when there's a little bit of a back and forth, and sometimes the characters might not necessarily do the right thing, even if they're trying to do the right thing. Now, I'm not saying that's actually going to happen. That happens in Arknights, but you know, I like that. It makes a protagonist a little bit more interesting to me if they're slightly flawed, or they're just, you know, they make mistakes sometimes, or they don't actually see the greater picture for what it is. Whereas, like, sometimes in Wuthering, the Rover is just like this kind of perfect character.
Burden is greater than Pheresis realizes, driven by the weight of larger ambitions. Pheresis, however, is unsatisfied with Doctor's offers and demands a more direct way to advance the war. He insists the only way to save Babel's members is for Doctor to kill their own leader, Teresa. Pheresis believes this will ensure the fall of the organization, making their survivors no longer a threat.
We made mistakes.
Doctor was reluctant at first, but finally agreed to this deal. They said they will tip the scales of destiny. In early 1094, Pheresis' forces began their advance into Victoria,
Check those wall
by the
towers.
Duke's ultimatum. By spring, Babel had deployed sleep
Some of the
agents,
imagery is really cool
including
though.
Julie, as an intricate plan to orchestrate a coup among the Victorian mercenaries and undermine the trust of Victorian dukes, with the ultimate plan of eliminating Pheresis. As summer approached, Babel initiated their strategy to reclaim Casdell. Events unfolded rapidly. Julie and her fellow assassins launched their attempt on Pheresis' life, coinciding with his own assassin's mission to eliminate Teresa. The situation at the landship deteriorated when Doctor disabled its security systems, allowing Pheresis' assassins to execute their plans.
Oh shit, okay.
And Durkariel observed their king's
Damn,
final
I could never
struggle
imagine
from
Rover doing
distance.
something like that.
Teresa, sensing the impending danger,
The Rover just figure out how to make it all go away, you know?
used her arts to shield Amy's vision when the child sought her for a bedtime story. She faced her would-be killers, former Sarkaz heroes who have fought alongside her and Pheresis during Calcit's crusade. These assassins had mutilated themselves, cutting their horns and marking their skin, concealing their identities beneath shrouds to erase their existence as Sarkaz traitors. Within a dark bubble, Teresa shared with Amia a tale of a hope-seeking puppet, whose fate ended up in despair. When the bubble dissipated, Amia discovered an injured Teresa among fallen bodies. After Amia agreed to help changing the story's ending, Teresa transferred the crown to her through a fatal sword strike, rendering Amia unconscious. The final moments unfolded swiftly. Doctor arrived at the command room with additional assassins, but Teresa, in her last act, erased Doctor's memories, urging them to find themselves. The Convalis of Banshee's Dirge announced Teresa's death to all Sarkaz, prompting Babel's immediate withdrawal from Casdell. Calcit discovered Teresa's body alongside the unconscious forms of Amia and Doctor. In Londinium, the assassins, sensing Teresa's death, pledged their allegiance to Pheresis. Despite Manfred's protests, Pheresis accepted their loyalty and commanded them to infiltrate the Mausoleum of Kings and eliminate every...
Okay, alright. It gets deep. Okay. I'm here for that. Oh man. More games need to do this.
Steam Knight within. In the aftermath of these tragedies, Babel finally collapsed. Those who remained aboard the landship fled Casdell. Teresa's body was taken by the Confessarius, while the unconscious Doctor was transported by Calcit to Schönebog City and placed within the sarcophagus. Calcit and Ascalon systematically purged
I love
the
that piece of
remaining
music.
traitors and instigators, while W relentlessly pursued Teresa's assassins. Despite the devastation, hope endured. Those who upheld Teresa's ideal would later rise again and form Rhodes Island Pharmaceutical, led by Teresa's successor, Amia. The organization dedicated itself to eradicating oropathy and ending the tragedies caused by Originium. And that brings us to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful, whether you're a player or...
Yeah, I'm not even gonna lie, like, I haven't played the game and that's like, damn, okay. You know, like, a lot of the context there, I'm not getting, but like, that end bit there, I'm like, okay, shit. Again, I hate to keep coming back to Wuthering Waves, but I play a lot of Wuthering Waves. I want to see this. This, again, please make sure this is something we get in Enfield. Please, I want this. I want there to be stakes. Make sure death isn't just a thing as well. This is like, whatever, you ain't got to worry about that. You know, the power of friendship will get us through all the time. We do not have to worry. You know, cliffhangers are not really cliffhangers. There's no real emotional points there, rather than somebody just had a sad past kind of thing, you know? Yeah, okay. Do you know what? Again, I keep saying it, man. I keep saying it. The more I watch, the more I want to play the game. We are going to get round to playing the game as well, guys. This is making me looking forward to the game more and more. I know people talk about it being in like a more visual novel style as well, which, don't get me wrong, I understand it. From a storytelling point of view, it can take away a little bit sometimes, can't it? Depending on what you're asking for. Or I think with a world like this, I can take that. You know, I could take a little bit of a nerf on the actual storytelling for a story like this, because it seems like a really, really, really interesting story. Watch the trailers. Yes, we're going to get back to watching the trailers. We probably won't do it today. We went through about 50 trailers. No, I think we got up to 70 little trailers yesterday. In AK, if an NPC dies, they die. I like that. I like that. That's why AK fan bases are ages when Enfield story are mid at best. Yeah, I hope it steps up to this sort of level, because this does look really interesting. The mission accomplished after killing Teresa was brutal. We killed our wife. So if you're wondering why the doctor betrayed Teresa, it's because they were stuck between the tragedies that Originium was causing in the present and his previous civilization's plan to save themselves. Okay. See, I like that. I like that. That's like a conflicted protagonist. That's interesting to me. You know, there's all different kind of tropes and cliches in storytelling, but I'd rather that sort of stuff in my storytelling than a perfect being, you know, that just, like say, farts a solution. You see, we need to fix it. The world's about to end, and they're just like, sorted. I did it. I fixed it, guys. Look how great I am. I'm awesome, yeah.